The year is 2004. Aside from a few not serious at all world events, E3, obviously far more important, is in session inside the gaming world. Nintendo and PlayStation are bolstering their AAA titles. Gran Turismo 4, Metroid Prime 2, Metal Gear Solid 3, even the new Zelda. All great titles, but you'll notice, all branching off from existing IPs. However, Xbox had other plans, and that was to reveal a new exclusive. And it wasn't a new first-person shooter or adventure title which they were known and acclaimed for, but rather something they never tried before. Something that would rival Sony's own behemoth. Forza Motorsport. Just after 1 year, that exclusive launched, and fans were, well, created. The game not only directly rivaled Gran Turismo, but was in fact better in many ways. Superior graphics, far more realistic physics, a campaign mode that by no means lacked impact or content. Overall, it was a massive success as Forza throughout the years became such an ingrained mark on Xbox, especially through the Horizon spin-off, that I dare say it, transcended it to the most popular Xbox franchise to this day, outshining even Halo. And this makes it all the harder to come to the reality of what Forza Motorsport has evolved into, or I should say, devolved into. And ultimately, all the harder to say what I'm about to say. You guys remember my barbecue roasting of Forza Horizon 5? Well, this is 10 times worse, which is quite an achievement I cannot even deny. Because after all this time since its release and another 100 hours with it, I realized this game is not just a failure. It's far, far more than that. And to really understand why, I think we first need to investigate the seeds and the sin that almost every AAA developer falls for today. The promises. Four years ago, July of 2020, Turn 10 first revealed Forza Motorsport. It was announced as a reimagining of the Forza franchise, a return to the roots, and more importantly, a vision completely built from the ground up. We had stunning graphics, a view at a brand new physics system, revamped AI, realistic sound design, new car models, even an actual damn progression system in a modern Forza game. I can go on and on, but personally, especially after the disappointing release of Gran Turismo 7, I was excited. I mean, Turn 10 taking over 6 years for this must mean something, right? You may ask, how's the game today after a full year? Well, the physics system that was supposedly built from the ground up was actually later discovered this year to be the exact same from Forza Motorsport 7, with the noticeable improvements just being buffed to the tick rate thanks to the next generation of Xbox hardware. The sound design for cars in this game is still overtly packed with reverb to this day that the V10s sound more like 4 cylinders than actual 4 cylinders themselves. The AI continues to engage in procreation, and the issue of cars in leads blazing into the sunset while the ones in groups becoming slogs continues to persist. The skill and safety rating still continue to have zero purpose except for taking up a giant tab in the multiplayer menu. The map is still not rendered in half the time, and that rear end pop-up still appears right at the start of your race, even though I have over 3 GB free. The campaigns are still shit. The snap oversteering, which by the way has been a problem for over a decade, has still not been fixed, and the mute button, a basic function of a multiplayer video game, still does not work half the time.
So
Just
why
give
do I
up. You're
sound
not,
black?
bro.
How does
You're not
black
gonna
sound?
win this. You're
Let
not
me
gonna
know
win this, bro.
how
We're
black
gonna go-
sounds, you racist
Oh
punk
my
bitch
gosh,
made
bro.
motherfucker. Answer that
You're
question.
not gonna win this,
Answer
bro.
that one question.
How does
I
black
will
sound?
give you $1 million
Hey.
if you can answer the question how somebody sounds black.
Here, this is how you sound black.
Hopefully, with all the data and statistics they collected over the year, they at least changed the penalty system that was not exactly great at launch.
Total time penalty is about 4.5 seconds.
Well, I'm not sure if the change was an improvement per se, but it's so nerfed now that it's worth it for players to ram and crash the opponent, get a penalty, have time to take a leak into the opponent's exhaust, and still be a dozen seconds ahead of the other player. That's if the penalty doesn't backfire on the other player himself. Alright, enough with the negativity. Let's talk about a change that the community has actually praised, and one which involves a system that has great importance to me. Do you remember the god-awful progression system? The same one which forced you to level up your car to obtain car points just to take out an extra seat. Well, it's gone. Yeah, practically removed. The decision of making car points, the currency used to buy vehicle upgrades, purchasable, with credits virtually removing any purpose of leveling up your car in the first place, appeased many. But personally, I think it's complete bullshit and lazy. The progression was actually an issue I highly discussed in my Horizon 5 video, that the connection and bond with your cars in these new Forzas is lacking, and everything is just given to you right as you start the game. So you could tell I was excited about Forza Motorsport finally trying something new. But let me tell you something. When I ask you to add a progression system, it does not mean to make the game a grindfest by locking upgrades behind illusionary points. What I'm telling you to do is to create rewarding playlists, interesting campaigns, incentives to play with certain cars, real competition, and little handholding. And while yes, toning down the overall speed of the system can help, it only works when there is proper progression there in the first place. Not only that, but now taking the system and just completely demolishing it without developing a replacement is a direct insult to the player's time. I haven't even mentioned the massive downgrade in graphical quality from trailers that's still not been addressed to the same fidelity because it is irrelevant in the sea of much bigger issues. Also, why the do I still have to manually change my fuel from 100% to the number of laps in the race when the game could just automatically set it for me? What is the point of even having that other than it being a nuisance? I'm not exaggerating any of these criticisms, even though many of you active players may think otherwise. I genuinely don't know what actual improvements have been made to this game after a full year, except for maybe the fucking skybox. In fact, you can see the general player base and support of this game has dropped so hard that all their servers can now afford, even with a $1 trillion backing from Microsoft, is one single dedicated class playlist. One. We still don't have any real different game modes, no drifting, no drag racing, both which were advertised in trailers, but nothing. The only things we've got is DLC cars that were already created before launch, ripped off Horizon 5, and some new tracks that should have already been present at release. Sure, the recent NASCAR and American Thunder Tour update is nice, but it's a teardrop in a massive bowl of expectations, a bowl that was meant to be full at launch. Truthfully, the developers are more busy ramming into their own players like me than fixing the damn game. 10 years of support, my ass. I often wonder to myself during the second visit, what went so wrong? How can Turn 10 take over 6 years and have less features, game modes, cars, and even graphical quality than Forza Motorsport 7, which was already a very mediocre entry into the franchise? How can you fuck up a game with such simple expectations? Well, after all this time, I think I've found at least my answer. Forza Motorsport was not developed by a game studio, and Turn 10 is not really a game studio itself either. Let me explain. Around the end of the Xbox One generation, Microsoft began a new approach to developing games. What they started to do was a process called outsourcing. Now, contractual work has always been pretty relied upon and an important process in video game development, especially in the later stages when spikes in workload are heavily increased due to nearing launch dates. But Xbox, on the other hand, took this to a whole new level. This contractual work was no longer seen as a fire extinguisher, but the building itself which was being extinguished. See, temporary workers would come in for about 6 months at a time and leave to only be replaced by another outsourced team for another 6 months. This wasn't a minor team there to help either. This was the bulk and meat of the development force. So, the majority of the people who worked on this game have never actually touched a Forza game before. Not only development-wise, but just general interaction with it, like hearing about it. That explains a lot, doesn't it? There was actually another game that took a very similar approach, and you may even notice some other affinities, so to speak. Not only that, but the entire management and environment continues to be so bad that the official Forza social media manager went on Twitter to publicly complain about his working hours as a form of protest on the actual Forza Motorsport Twitter account. And you know what's the joke from all of this? Microsoft expected to bring in the same profits as Horizon 5 has through this game. Not going so well, is it? This is exactly what makes this game more than just a failure to me. It is a collective breakdown and destruction of not only a long-standing and prided upon franchise, but also a loved studio that's been there with Xbox from almost the beginning, creating the juggernaut that is their personal racing gaming kingdom. This game is created more by a bunch of Indian freelancers who came in for about 6 months at a time and then left to have a vacation in Mumbai. So it's not even a failure that Turn 10 themselves can take credit for. I was wondering why things that Forza Horizon 4 and 5 improved on, such as the actual enhanced physics, were not transferred to this entry. I mean, you'd think Forza Motorsport, an actual track simulator, would need these technical improvements far more than an arcade title. But explained after you realize that a vast majority of the people behind this game didn't even know what Forza was before developing it. There is no essence of evolution or progression left in this franchise. It's sadly kind of become like those EA Sports titles that are practically recycled every entry. I mean, we still have car models ranging all the way back to the original Motorsport titles. The customization still has parts being used from Forza Motorsport 2 and 3. And you know what's the funniest part? Is that Turn 10, or whoever made this game at this point, had the balls to advertise those exact parts and old cars in a trailer talking about how revolutionary this game is.
Built from the ground up for this generation.
Many people may argue, and many of you may actually comment, that, well, I'm still having tons of fun playing this game, so I don't care about the fact that if it's a failure or not. But that's not what I'm arguing. Of course, Forza Motorsport can be fun at times, extremely, but the question is there really any purpose to playing this over anything else in its market, over GT7, over its own predecessors? Truth is that it's probably your only real choice on Xbox, and that's why, in a manner, you're forced to play it. Forza Motorsport 7, a now almost 8-year-old game, has more features than this, and you can't even obtain it because it's fucking delisted. Motorsport no longer exudes a passion for cars anymore. It doesn't feel like this game was made by people who really respect and care about the automotive industry as an art. It feels as though it was made as another live service cash cow to support Game Pass, which, well, it was. The artistic menus, the careful detail and attention, the music even, it's all gone. There is no style left to this franchise, which is sad, because it was one of the original trailblazers for the track racing genre. Turn 10, or once again whatever's left of it, did something extremely impressive for the Forza franchise, and that's actually to make Forza Horizon 5's flaws look meaningless compared to this. There is no hope for Motorsport like there is for Horizon. At least with Horizon, all Playground really needs to do is listen to the criticisms and complaints that have been plaguing the overall enjoyment and fun of the game. But Motorsport, I don't think the developers can do anything. Not only because they're simply not capable to, but because the base itself has become rotten. What I can be hopeful for is that another developer sees and leverages this vacuum that motorsport has left behind. A lot may argue that there's Assetto, but even that has its own problems, especially with being far too niche and possessing a difficult learning curve, which prevents the average consumer from entry. We need a title that respects what motorsport is and what it stands for, while also doing what Forza Motorsport has been so good at, being inviting to the casuals, and striking a balance between simulation and arcadiness. Forza Motorsport to me is dead, not only because of the failure that it is, but because it's no longer made for the reasons, or by the people, that it was originally created for. I want to be proven wrong, but I honestly don't think I will be.
People sitting and talking, standing and talking, walking and talking. One person standing and talking, while another is sitting and talking. People standing and talking, then taking a seat for more talking.
They fully lined up for this generation.